So till last class, we have seen some fundamentals about Sandbox and some fundamentals about customizations, and we have started looking into um, uh, we have categorized the kind of personalizations will be of three kinds basically. One is uh, adding the content typically, and one is and modifying the page appearances, and third one is adding the brand new pages to the application basically. And we have begun with uh, our home pages, how to configure our home pages, how to do customization of Springboard or Navigator, and how to add a new tab. And we have seen appearances, announcements, themes, we have seen page layouts, we have seen all that. And also we have seen something about adding the content. So adding the content in sense how to I think we have seen how to add contents in a typical page, how to add a report, or how to add a component like a hyperlink, how to add a text box. We have seen something like that. Okay, and yeah, how to add custom tabs, and how to in the custom tab, how to add the content, how to add hyperlink. We have seen. So, and apart from hyperlink, we can add text box, we can add a box. Within that box, we can add hyperlinks, add text. We can do many things basically by adding the content. So whatever demonstration I have given about adding the content, on the same thing, you can keep following up, keep adding the contents accordingly. Okay, so I will go a little more advanced on that. So which we typically do in any implementations. Right, so I just logged in as some employee, Curtis Friety. So I'm just going into about me, and I'm just going to his personal information page. Okay, so and then we will talk more advanced concepts of how typically personalization will work, and what are the real-time implementations we do, kind of stuff. Okay, so for that, today I'm going to talk about a new concept called expression language, basically. So I have given a brief introduction about expression language in the last session, typically which we have seen in the ADF, and yeah, nothing to worry about that one. But we have seen in the ADF about how typically expression language looks like. But today let's talk about that in detail, and let's see how does that syntax is and how we can use that expression language in customizing our pages. Okay, while it is loading, so let me go to expression language, and for adding the content, I have given some more examples in this PPT, so that definitely will work to you. So my examples are brief enough to look into that. Right. So expression languages. So why do we need expression language? What is the importance of it? Okay. So think of a scenario like that. So last session, we have added, okay, think of a different scenario, which I will explain here. Okay. So there is scenario, there is a page, performance evaluation, right? Appraisal system. So appraisal system, basically we have two fields called success criteria and comments. Two sections are there. Okay. And typically what happens is, if you go to the goal page, think of any page. That page has two fields. In this page, I'm taking the performance management page, appraisals page, where we have success criteria and comments, two pages. Now, what I wanted to do, these two pages are employee, worker means employee, manager, we can, other than worker means manager, think of like that. So this appraisals will be done by the employee or a manager of a manager, something, whatever hierarchy they are following in. So what we wanted to do, success criteria text box should not be filled by the employee. It should be read only for the employee, but These comments worker has to fill, employee has to fill. There are two text boxes. The first text box should be read only for employee, and second text box should be editable for the employee. Okay. Now, but if it is a manager or manager of a manager, whoever it is, they should be able to edit this text box, but they should not be able to edit the comments box. That's the requirement. Think of like that. In real scenario, both these text boxes are editable by anyone. If you're an employee or a manager, it can be editable by anyone. But our company has a requirement saying that success criteria, employee should not fill it. Typically, manager should fill it. And comments, whatever employee fills, that's the final. No one should be able to edit it. So it should be read only for the anything other than employee, manager or reviewer, whoever, if that is a requirement. So it means if it is employee, then read only. If it is manager, then editable. That's what our requirement is. Okay, well enough. So if we want to achieve that, how do we achieve that? How do we differentiate that? That is one requirement. Okay, I will tell about another requirement. So let us say, hope it comes. Oh, it's opening up. Think of another scenario like we have the file import and export. Basically, typically, why do we use that? We use file import and export screen. If you remember, in FBDI, we were using that. File import and export screen, the uploading of the files into the Fusion application, into the web content server, only people having the HR specialist role, or people having some specific role, or people who are managers, or some other criteria, maybe people who are residing in United States. Only HR people who are residing in United States only should upload the file. No one should be able to upload the file. Think of like that. We have upload button is there. The upload button should be editable, should be available only for the people who have some certain criteria, or only financial analyst should be able to upload the file, or only HR analyst should be able to upload the file. Okay, irrespective of whatever roles they have assigned. Typically, how the upload button will come up in the file import export. Typically, the upload button will come up if we have the application implementation consultant role or any administrator role. If we have that, automatically file import and export will come. But what we wanted to do, we don't want that upload button to enable anyone, only to the people who has analyst role, something like that, or people who are analyst role and residing in the United States. So based on some condition, that button should be grayed out, and that button should be editable if that is a criteria. In those criteria, typically, if in those criteria only it came up, in those criteria only that field should be editable if that is a requirement. How do we achieve that? Okay, and yeah, so we got the information here. So we are in the sandbox. Why we have click here button coming up here. So some modification happened on top of it. It's really slow. Okay. So in those cases, typically whatever way we add in the content that doesn't work at all, right? So how do we do that? How do we conditionally change the values, or how do we conditionally change the properties of the fields? Okay, maybe in United States, last name is mandatory. So it means we wanted to make it as required. I wanted to make the last name field as required only in the United States. In any other country, last name is not required. How do I change the required property of the last name based on the location? Okay, there are many things which typically varies in any company, basically, right? Lot of personalizations and customizations. Every company has their own requirement, right? How do we achieve that? So those things, basically, it means we are actually, to modify the properties of any field, we want to refer some other field, and while referring other field, we have to keep a condition. If that field is this value, do this. If that field is this value, do that, right? So if else condition should be kept. Okay, to do all those things, typically what we need to do, we should learn another concept called expression language. It is very slow today. Okay, so while it is coming up, we have to learn expression language, basically, right? So basically, expression language is used for adding additional logic to the runtime customization of base components. Okay, whatever Fusion applications offers out of the box, on top of it, if you want to keep any additional logic at the runtime, then we can use the expression language. Example, dynamically set a field to a default specific value. Okay, example, if someone is hired in the US legal, any US legal employer, then set the location to Redmond by default. That is a requirement. Set the work location of the employee to Redmond by default. When we should set it to Redmond? Only if employee hired in the United States. Okay, we can dynamically set a field to a default specific value, and dynamically set the display properties of a specific field, right? As I was saying, so last name, if you wanted to change the last name as required in the United States, then you can dynamically set the display properties of a specific field, and conditionally hide or disable a field or region. Okay, as I was saying in the display, in the comments or success criteria buttons, as I was saying, if it is employee, disable it. If it's a manager, enable it. Enable disable means, and I disable it so no one can edit it, make it read only and editable. So in all these kind of scenarios, typically we use expression language, basically. Okay, and this feature actually comes as part of the embedded Oracle Web Center Page Composer. So whenever we invoke the Page Composer, whatever we are doing now, whenever a page, it is still working. Whenever Page Composer is invoked, within the Page Composer, this feature is available actually. So it's part of the Page Composer tool, and its underlying technology is ADF. Okay, in the ADF, we were seeing the ADF technology, right? Typically in the ADF, we have those expression language components available, basically. And its primary use for Page Composer based runtime customization that can be made in both SaaS and on-premise environments. It can be available anywhere. Okay, and basically we can also develop these expressions in the JDeveloper and ADF as well. And one thing we have to note, this JDeveloper and ADF also support this expression language to customize the pages, basically. So this expression language is very powerful. Basically, to talk more about this expression language, typically this Page Composer, and I said another thing called Application Composer. This Page Composer and Expression Composer are part of the Oracle Web Center. So Oracle Web Center supports this expression language actually. And Oracle Web Center has a long list of expression language scenarios. But out of that, Page Composer has a limited set of the expression languages available. So what are available? I'm going to show it. I don't know why it is very slow today. Okay, so it has a long list. Out of that, only certain expression languages will be used in the Page Composer, which we will be talking about it slowly, basically. And when this expression language logic is fired, once we write it, when it will fire, basically. And it is fired by the partial refresh page functionality. What does it mean? What do you mean by partial page refresh functionality is, okay, so whenever we click on anything, okay, let us say when I click on edit, typically what happens? A refresh happens on this page. Okay, similarly, if I'm entering the last name after entering the last name, if I click on the tab button or I click on the first name button, automatically last name field will get refreshed. After entering the first name, if I click on the date of birth, automatically first name field will be refreshed. That is called the partial refreshing functionality. Whenever partial refresh happens, whatever the expression language built on this field, then automatically that expression language conditions will get triggered automatically. Similarly, if I navigate from this page to this page, automatically this page will get refreshed. Whenever that page is refreshed, automatically whatever expression language built on the complete fields, they will get triggered automatically. Why I'm saying that? Because typically we are writing expression language on the existing pages. Once the page is sent from Oracle middleware to the front end application, basically at that point of time, it won't have any page customizations. But once the Oracle middleware sends the page to the front end, at that point of time, while it is displaying over the front end, this expression language comes into the picture and it will be applied on top of it. Okay, and that typically will be applied whenever page get refreshed. You can think of like that. Okay, it's still opening. That is why it is very important to test the EL execution thoroughly. Okay, because we don't know, because we are not deploying it in the server anytime. This EL logic renders whenever page displays, whenever page opens up, right? That is the reason whenever we do any changes with expression language, you have to make sure that is working thoroughly and then move it to production. Okay, because we cannot guarantee that it will work everywhere perfectly, because we are not deploying the server. We are refreshing it when we are executing it whenever page is getting refreshed. So we have to make sure whenever you are defaulting values or modifying the values or applying the conditions, those things has to be tested thoroughly, and we have to make sure they are working perfectly. Okay, and again, not every page is intended to fully customizable. Okay, even those that may not always expose the component properties against means. What I mean by this is, I wanted to show why I know it's coming. It's very slow today. Sorry for that. Let's see if I can log in with any other user. I'm trying to open another instance. Bear me. Let's see if this one works. Oh, no, it's still opening. You try one more. No. it's not the day. Okay, so it came up. So okay, let's hopefully it works. So I'm going to source mode. To go to expression language, just go to source mode. Once you go to source mode, then click on any field. I don't know why it is working like this today. Oh my gosh. So while it is opening up, I am just looking at any other instance is working. Just trying other instance. Okay, so something came up. So typically, so let us say, let's start with simple thing. So let us say home address type is here. Okay, so let's go here. Let's type is here. Just what we can do, just click on the type. It's a shared component. If you modify here, it will affect everywhere. Okay, let it do. Click on edit. So now I'm modifying it here. Now, if you, yeah, just see here. Let's do one thing. Okay, I choose a region here. So what typical I will do? Let's say output text address is there. It is the address. So address is here. Okay. Let us say click on this properties. I'm clicking on this address component here, and this output text address is the component. And I click on this edit button here. Okay. So edit a window is going to open now. It is a window, right? So here, this field has some set of properties because that is typically output text field. So this field has a set of properties. So one of the properties value, what our value is showing up here is address that is coming up here. Okay. Now, if I wanted to change the value of this address, instead of address, I wanted to say something like your address. I want to say like that. Okay. How do I change this value? I want to apply it as a comment saying that as I am into my employee screen, employee about me screen, employee personal information screen, I want to say your address, something like that, right? I want to modify this text. How do you modify it? So typically it has the address here, and how this address got populated, it has some value here. It is saying that HCM people, it is an expression language. It is saying that HCM people top some bundle header dot address person, something it is showing up here. Okay, it has some functionality here. What is this language? How do I change it? How do I keep my own value? If you want to keep your own value as something like your address, something like that, then typically you can click on drop down. Once you click on drop down, okay, then typically every field, when I click on this drop down, you will be seeing 3 fields here. One is text resource, other one is expression builder, third one is override. So expression builder is the place where we write our expression languages. Text resource is the place whenever we write any expression language, and if you wanted to show the example, if it is English, you want to show as your address. If it is Spanish, you wanted to show as a different thing. Or if it is Hindi, you want to show as different thing. How do you translate the values? Those things can be done from text resource. Basically, it is a place where you can do the translations of your expressions. Basically, let us see how do you change the values from address to some different value. Okay, before talking about this expression language, let us see some static values, how we can give it. Example, irrespective of anything, I wanted to show this address as your address. Okay, in that case, what typically I can do, when I click on it, it will open two things. Expression editor. This expression editor has two things: choose a value and type a value. So choose a value, I will talk about it in a minute. In type a value, if you wanted to write your own expression language, if you know how to write the expression language, then typically you can write it here. Okay, to write it here, you have to understand what each of this component means for. Okay, so let us say, but I don't want to look at all this. I want it to keep the address as your address, something like this. Okay, you can type it like this, and once you type it, then automatically it will apply here. So to test it, you can just click on text. What typically happens, expression language engine will take this value, execute it, and it will show what could be the possible value this engine will return. Engine will return the value as your address. That's what we want to display here. Then we'll say okay. Then it will take the test. This address will become my address once you click on the apply button. It is a simple way how we can change the text basically. Okay, now it will just click on apply, then automatically address will become your address here once you click on the apply button, if everything works perfect. So how did we do that? Before it was having some expression language here, and we have overridden that and we applied our own value basically. Okay, if we know how that expression is built, then typically we can play around with our own way of writing the stuff basically, right? So let's see how we do that. Before that, let's test it. Let's see what it is coming up. And now typically we got the system defined value out of the product value, and what we did, we just modified it. Okay, so before modifying any existing value, make sure and check twice before doing the change, because typically you should not modify the existing value. If you are modifying, you should know what you are modifying and why you are modifying. See that it became your address now. Okay, and whenever you do the changes, a blue balloon will come up saying that this value is changed. Okay, and for some reason you don't want, if you want to get the value back, then what you can do, you can just click on the drop down and just you can go ahead, and once you do the changes, a reset option will become enabled now. If you just click on the reset, automatically it will get back the old value. Okay, so it's a typical functionality here, and this drop down applies everywhere here. Okay, example, show component here. To show, okay, it got some error. Okay, let it be. So we have show component here. What is a show component? Show component is a field which will show this field. If you want to show or hide the field, then show component is a one. By default, it is showing. If you uncheck it, then typically what happens? That button, that field will be disappear because we disabled it. Okay, some fields will be just disable and enable, and some fields typically we have to go and override like this. Okay, so once I click on apply, typically this your address component will be disabled and it won't show anymore. Okay, and why it is okay, so the same checking and unchecking, whatever I checked it, right? I unchecked and unchecked it. Same thing can be done from expression builder too. Whenever it is checked, by default, if it is checked, right, if you go to this drop down and go to the expression builder, then typically what you will be seeing, you see here, it got disappeared here, and it is saying that it is changed. Okay, now whenever it is checked, by default what happens is, if you go to the expression builder here, by default it was true. Now as we unchecked it, it will become false. Okay, so expression builder, typically it takes a value, it takes true or false, a boolean value, and it takes, so if I go to expression builder now, this expression builder will show the value as false because we unchecked it. Okay, so so actually this instance is really hurting. Okay, so let it open. Okay, let's go to the right. So this EL, typically EL statement should be, I mean, by default it takes value and it takes boolean value, true or false, both. So previously we have given your address and automatically your address got populated, and it takes true or false also. It means if it is true, then it will is visible, and if it is false, it is not visible. So for read only, or for required fields, or for optional fields, those kind of fields, typically we use true and false. And for typical values or labels, for those kind of fields, typically we use values, basically. Okay, basically we use two things, either text or a numer or a boolean, basically. Okay, so sorry for that. Let me. That's too much. I'm just pinging Ravi if he has any other instance. Yeah, he don't have any other instance available. Okay, no. Okay, so okay, let me yeah, until unless I show this, I cannot proceed ahead. Okay, let us assume that it takes an expression language, right? So how many ways, what is expression language and how we can write that typically? Example, in place of your address, let us say I wanted to display person name here. I want display person name address. Example, your address here, right? Your address coming up here, right? What if a employee, let us say Curtis, logged into this personal information screen, I wanted to show Curtis address, first name address, last name address. How I wanted to display the name here. In place of your, I want to display the name dynamically. How the name should come up based on the employee who logged in into the system. Based on that, I wanted to show that employee first name here. How do you bring your employee first name here? How you can make it achieved? For that, you should know how to write an expression language, right? So for that, to write an expression language, we have many expression language. Okay, there is some connection error. Let me go again. Your address, properties. Okay, so let me bring this. Okay, while it is opening up, let me bring this. Okay, so we have expression languages. We have many kinds of expression languages available here. It is a complete list of expression languages available within the Fusion application. But out of this, only limited expression languages are available for the Pace Composer. Pace Composer means SaaS model. Okay, so what are the things available in the SaaS model? We have EL for applications, expression language for security, expression language for general settings, expression language for application resources, navigation, web-centered portal services, documents, people connection, and personalization. Out of this, we have security, we have general settings, we have the people connections, and we have the personalization. Okay, so what is security? So if you wanted to return the user who currently logged in to the system, then you can refer this security context.username. Now, before referring this one, all the expression languages starts with a hash and will be kept in the middle of the open and closed braces. So it is a typical format. Within the hash and this open and closed braces, you can give whatever variable you are looking for. Okay, so these are all those. If you wanted to bring any security specific expressions into the Fusion applications, these are given by the Oracle. If you wanted to, example, if you wanted to bring the user who logged, example, in our case, if you wanted to display in place of your address, in the place of your, you want to display the username who logged in to the system, then typically what you can do, you can refer this expression language saying that security context at username. Then what happens, whoever employee logged in, that username will pull up dynamically, can be used in the expression language. Similarly, whoever is logged in, if the person is authenticated, it will return as true. If it is not authenticated, it will return as false. Returns true when user is authenticated in the context in which EL is being invoked. So example, if we invoke this expression language in this about me information, if the employee is okay to access this screen, then that value will return true, else it will return false basically. So these are all the typical security functions which we can use right away. So I can take this one like this and I can use in my expression language. Hope it opens. Language. Similarly, the other thing, returns true if the current user is a specified user. Maybe if you wanted to check an exam, if you want to keep a condition like that, let us say there is a field is there, or there is a screen is there, or there is a section is there. You wanted to display the section only to the CEO of the company, or only to the CFO of the company. Only CFO should be able to see that screen or see that form, and no one should be able to see that. How do you restrict that? You can use this. See this, what it is saying, that if the current user, WS security, Web Center security context, current user is some username, okay, then returns true. I can give the username as CFO username. It will say if returns true if the current user is specified user, otherwise false. I can keep like that. Okay, so let me log out. It's not working. It's very important for us to demonstrate. Let me log in with some different user on whom the sandbox is not enabled. Issue the instance itself, I guess. It's not the problem with the sandbox. I am bugging Ravi here consistently. It's not available. Okay, so yeah, the problem with that. Okay, so let's move further. So yeah, similarly, we have other thing for general settings. General settings, in the sense, every user sets the time zones, right? They prefer the date style. If you wanted to bring that dynamically, okay, so I want to give the user time zone, whatever time zone user has set. Maybe I wanted to, maybe in the screen, I wanted to, based on the time zone, I wanted to change the properties. Based on time zone, I wanted to change the appearances of the fields. I mean, if it is a requirement, or based on the date style, you want to display the data, right? So if you want to get that, then these are the expressions which are useful to bring the data. You want to use the time zone, preferred date style, or preferred skin name. Preferred skin name, in sense, maybe sometimes some user can go ahead and change the skin background of the colors or the font of the Fusion applications. What is the preferred skin name of the user? Typically, it's not available in the SaaS model, but we can, if you get that, based on the skin name, you can decide how you want to set the background colors of the text or foreground colors of the text. How do you want to modify that? How do you, what is a formatted current time? So all this information can be brought using this general setting expression language. You have nothing to no code to write. You can just use it straight away. Okay, I will demonstrate that. And application resources, you won't use it in a SaaS model, but typically application resources will be really useful. This application resources is another expression language which are used to, it's like calling an API, calling a program, basically calling an API. So what typically for this application resource expression language, what typically you need to do, typically you have to pass two values. Basically, example, you wanted to bring some, let us say, if you wanted to return any resource with specified creation date. Maybe you wanted to, example, think of like that. We have many resources can be created using ADF, right? We have many resources can be created, and based on the creation date, maybe you wanted to bring the resources, bring the pages, page names, which are created on that specific date. That is our requirement, right? So typically for that, we have something called SRM context. It is the API, and for it takes two values. One is the parameter name, other one is a parameter value. Parameter name is created date, and the value is give the value of the date. If you give the value like this, then automatically what happens, all the resources registered in the Fusion middleware as of the creation date will be written. Okay, And we own in SaaS model. I'm just saying basically. So and again, you can use this expression in in our instance. It will return some value, but you won't use it much. Okay, so what happens, whatever the resources, what are the pages got created as of that date, all the pages values will get returned. And the return, once it returns it, it takes two return types. One is single result, other one is result list. Single result means if that one returns only one value, then it is called single result. If it returns more than one value, then it's called results list basically. And we use it in the programming concepts basically, but it is one kind of EL. Okay, and another important EL what we do, I won't cover navigation too. Important thing is, these are all this model, people connection service basically. This is very useful EL language basically. Example, if you want to bring the employee number of the username, right? So example, what I would, how do you bring the username? Based on security context.username, I will bring the current username, and for that username, I will bring the employee number. And what is that username's time zone? What is the username department? What is the username business city? What is the username maiden name? What is the username date of hire? We can bring many values dynamically in the application pages using all these properties. What is the username? What is the title? What is the business mobile? We can bring many information into our Fusion applications using this people connection service. Okay, yeah, it's not working today. So we can bring that. So these expression languages, using these readily available expression languages, we can bring a lot of information into the screens, and we can use if-else conditions. How do you write if-else conditions in the expression language? For that, I'm going to share one good document with you all. Okay, so it is another document which typically says how to write the conditions in the expression language. So as instance is not available, I will just demonstrate here. Example, if you want to write any conditions, example, we have seen that show component field, right? Display it or don't display it. So that is nothing but Boolean condition, true or false. Those Boolean conditions can also be achieved by like this. So hash open and closed is common. 4 greater than 3. What is it? True or false? If it is true, then automatically that expression language will go as true. If it is false, it will give the false. It's very basic operators like this. You can use greater than, equal to, not equal to. You can do multiplications, and you can also compare between the two characters, two strings, and we have not equal to, LT is less than, GT is greater than, and sometimes you can do the multiplications. I mean, you can get the values and multiplications. Okay, and one important thing here is wherever you see the bindings, bindings means what typically happens. I will go back to my ADF business components, right? We have in the model, we have the view object, evo object, those things. So bindings means what typically happens is it is actually has a view object assigned to it. It has a row view object assigned to it. Using bindings, you can get the value of that column. If I say binding dot person number dot input value, I will get the person number. If I get bindings dot first name dot input value, I will get the first name. So typically using the bindings, basically you can bring back the value, provided that value should be available in that screen or available in that section or available in that line basically. So if it is available, you can just use it like this. Bindings dot mean whatever the field name dot input value, you can get it and multiply it. You can play around with it. If you want to multiply it, you have to multiply it within the braces. So it is a typical basic operators. And if you want to do a condition logic, if condition, how do you do the if condition? That if condition, again, it's actually, if condition has a question mark and column, basically. Example, everything will go in that open and closed braces. This brace is wrong. This brace should be kept here. So example, customer balance is less than 0, then true, then red, false, that is black. Okay, same thing like some row dot flow template name is equal to new hire, then color equal to this one, else color equal to this one. So if else condition is like this, and if you have or condition, then you can use pipe symbols, and if it's and conditions, you have to use two ampersand symbols like this. You have to use two ampersand symbols, and if it is not condition, you have to use exclamatory mark. So these are the typical if else condition logical operators we should use in this. So it is a syntax: test question mark, then one, else two. So this is a typical syntax. If we have more if else nested if else loops, then typically you have to use if it is true, then do this. In the else condition, you can write one more if condition, like the same syntax, you can do one more and keep looping it inside. That is the if else condition. So sometimes while displaying the values, you want to display the value in a proper format. If you want to use a HTML body, you can still use it. How can you use it in the HTML body? Typically, you can just use it in the include the expression language inside that value, basically wherever you want it. Here they have written a JavaScript. In the JavaScript, they have used this EL accordingly, so we can use that. Even a HTML script, we can just use that. So they have written a JavaScript saying that if epicenter profile security context username business state equal to California, then display the some California website giving California website. Else they have given the Blue Cross Blue Shield website, something like that. So this level of availability also there. Wherever we have seen the value, wherever we have entered your address, there we can enter this JavaScript and make it work as simple as such. And also you can embed it, example in the YouTube, yourcompany.com, or wherever you wanted to display that respective state level document. We can bring the value, bring the PDF, or bring the document, generate the document name dynamically and use it like this. It is one way. And some place you want to display the image of the employee. Basically, this is a page flow scope.person ID. That is the person ID. It will bring the person ID of that person who logged in, and person image question mark person ID equal to this one. It will bring the embed the image of the person at wherever the location you want it to. It is creating the dynamically creating the links basically. So these are several ways where actually you can use the expression language. And accessing the skin details, basically as I was saying, based on what is the skin family, based on example, based on the skin family, we can adjust the font, background and color, foreground colors of the text, and we can modify like that in the CSS while displaying the properties. We can also be done using these things. And how we are getting all these values, application core, preference.skin family, how we are getting it, all those things we have just referred in this ELs basically. Any of these things will belongs to one of these expression languages, and we have to refer this one first to identify what value you want it to, and based on that you can start preparing the if else conditions or dynamic conditions or scripts or HTML bodies. You can keep doing like that. Okay, and typically here actually it is giving the use case scenarios for each level details. For user, how do you want to get the user information? You can get the security content at username, give the user information. General settings that user time zone, just now you have seen. So these things will give the user information. Similarly, dates and times, these things will give the dates and times information. So resource bundles, basically if we have any translations exist, then typically what it will do, it will apply those translations and bring those translations in our Fusion applications basically. So by default it is English, and if you have a Spanish translation is there, then if we have a resource bundle created, system is not available, else I might have shown it. If any translation is created for that specific field, what system will do, typically this one will look at that language bundle, and if there is Spanish or whatever language available based on the user preference, it will display the value, and it will display the basic language, that is English. So resource bundles. And ADF bindings, this is what I was telling very importantly. It is a object that link between the UI and the backend data model, right? Binding comments dot input value, binding change order flag dot input value. So everything will, this anything with the backend data, that data will be referred using the binding dot column name dot input value. That is very important. So it will give the value, and based on the value you can play around with it. We will be using this ADF bindings very frequently. Okay. And ADF tables nothing but when we do the, for example, when we go to any screen and click on a search button, we get a lot of rows in the search results, right? That is called ADF table. If you want to change that table level properties, then typically you have to say row dot weighting not equal to null, or row dot bindings dot, if that row has some some value which we have to bring from backend, then we can say row dot bindings dot is employee rating given dot input value, something like that. So these things we can use by ADF tables. ADF tables and page structure properties. Page structure properties in sense at the page level, if you wanted to bring any information, basically page level, some pages support the use of native Web Center object components. So they're given here. It's not necessary that in all the pages these attributes are available or these fields are available. We have to test it first. For anything, they're all covering the whole list of the components which are available, but we have to test it and make sure they are working. Then only we have to use it. It's not guaranteed that everything is available everywhere. Okay, so yeah, page structure properties and page flow scope. Page flow scope in sense, if we have a task flow, we are in a train stop. We are moving from one first train stop to second train stop to third train stop. Or if you are in the panel tab, task list is there, and if you're moving from one task to another task, then typically some of the properties are available across that page flow. Basically, example, page flow scope dot PO role, or page flow dot task name, and page flow scope dot profiles. So some of these fields are available. If you want to get the full list of fields, you can click here. Typically, it again go back to the same screen where you can define the properties by the page flow. I think it's navigation. So page flow scope and security context. It's again subset of what we have seen. How to bring the username, or how to bring the user roles of the user. Example, let us in the previous case, I was saying that for employee it should be editable. For manager it should not be editable. How do you do that? I will use this security context. I will say security context at user in role. I'll give employee. Then only make that field as editable. If it is not employee, make it as read only. I can say like that. So I will be using this security context in that scenario, which will be seeing tomorrow anyway, because instance is not working today. So yeah, so we have many other scenarios. Yeah, we have many only the scenarios which we can use it very variedly, and if we use all these things, most of our requirements will get satisfied without much coding. Basically, all these things can be done using these expression languages. For that, one thing we should keep the documentation with us is this link. Another one is it's just for information, and we have to play around with if conditions. We have to play around with getting multiple expression languages into one string, and how does it work. And for any expression languages, we have to make sure those whatever variables we are using it are available in that page context, and make it work accordingly actually. So I mean, tomorrow we will see the examples. We'll go into that, and we'll see more examples, and we'll see what we can do. And one thing you can see is we have something called Developer Relations YouTube channel. It is very powerful. Basically, Oracle Fusion. Let me open it. It's a Oracle YouTube channel. So they will give a vast number of examples, and still it is still growing. It's not yet completely. I mean, the personalization, customization is still evaluating phase. So what Oracle is doing, Oracle is actually providing many use cases into. Yeah. So
this is a brief video introducing Developer Connect in Release 10.
No, not this.
So here we are on the home page. If you go to the navigator, in this case.
No. Okay, so see here they have something called Page Composer. Page Composer will have all the customizations what we can do here basically. See, they have given a long list of examples. I mean, I didn't give much. I think my 15-20 are there. They have given enough examples basically which actually I referred initially to start with. That will have most of the use cases what we can do using this personalizations basically. And not everything will talk about expression languages. Some of them will talk about expression languages basically. Wherever you said dynamic, they are all expression languages basically. How we can use expression languages. And application composer, we have more number of details. Typically, we use in the sales and ADF also. They have more examples for the expression language basically. Okay, so I think as we don't have instance today, so I will hold off now, and I will go into the example scenarios tomorrow directly, and then we continue from there. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Lakshmi. I'll see you tomorrow then.
Okay, see you then. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Lakshmi. I have just a question.
Yes, Mahantesh.
See, I just wanted to know because I was continuously not able to attend regularly.
Okay. Okay.
So I just wanted to know from which video we started on the ADF one part and BI.
Okay. So my
you
videos.
Can give me the date or something. I will try to pick up from there because as I said earlier, I was kind of
okay. So let me get my videos typically. My video.
Do you give that name to that video? What?
Yeah. So my videos will be defined like that now. Like example, if I start OTBI, I will say OTBI day 1. If it is ADF, I will say ADF 1.
Perfect.
Like that.
Perfect. So
okay.
Basically, I was looking at a little bit of ADF and BI.
Okay, BI publisher or OTBI?
OTBI mainly.
Yeah, OTBI
is the main one, right? I mean, where we can do.
Yes. Yeah, go through BIP as well, BI publisher as well. So this OTBI to BIP, day 27.
BI publisher is mainly like an XML publisher, right? I mean,
yes, absolutely. That's true. Yeah.
So I have done quite a few XML publisher kind of work.
Then perfect. Then you will be pretty much aware of it.
Yeah. So I was more interested on OTBI where we can do a lot of customization.
Okay. Yeah. OTBI day 1 to day 5, we have 5 days OTBI. So you can refer that.
Yeah. No, perfect. No, this naming convention is a perfect thing. So.
Okay. Perfect.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I see that. You are on and off basically. So